Yo, what is up, everybody? My name is Jonathan Stewart. Um, so I've worked loss prevention for the past 4 to 5 years. Um, it's a very fun job if you're going into law enforcement and you're not at that age limit because I think to be a police officer you need to be 21 years old or older. So if you're like 18, 19, you want to become law enforcement. It's a great job to have when you want to get started and you want to see what type of people are out there because there are a ton of crazy people out there. Um, I've got a couple of stories that I just want to share. They're really amazing stories. So I worked for a couple of companies with loss prevention, and it's a fun job. You basically just sit in a room all day, spin cameras, look for someone that's stealing, and then when they hit the doors to exit on out with their merchandise, unpaid merchandise, you go and just grab them and bring them back to the office and just trespass them and lock them away to jail. It's a fun job. Um, so one story I want to tell is about a janitor that it was literally within like a couple of days of, not days, a couple of months of me working there. I think it was like within 2 months of me working there um, at the place. And I was brand new to loss prevention. I was still learning. I just newly got certified to make stops and everything. And I'm sitting there alone at night, watching cameras. And at the store, we sell Fitbits, which are activity watches that you can wear. And so there's this one janitor. He was like the friendliest janitor ever. He could like come up to you and pretty much like be like, "Hey, what's up?" Everything. And he spoke English. That's gonna be very important and towards the end of the story because it was funny. So he was too comfortable with loss prevention. First thing about loss prevention is if someone's too comfortable with you, most likely they're gonna steal. Because usually people don't get too comfortable with loss prevention unless they want to know. Because this guy, he was like, "When y'all get off?" and everything like that. And I guess he didn't realize I was at the store this time because it was a very slow day. I don't think we got anything that day. It was just very slow. We had a lot of like great opportunities come in, but none of them just stole. Um, but this guy, I think it's literally right before closing. Store closes at 10, and it was like 9:30, and I'm over there sitting, spinning cameras. And this electronics department, we have the Fitbits locked behind the case. And the only way you can get a Fitbit is if you go to an employee, have them unlock the case, and then you tell them what that you want. They'll take the Fitbit and take it up to customer service where you can buy it or to the registers. Um, and so sitting there spinning all cameras, and we have like a four panel. We have four monitors. Like this store was brand new, renovated. It had 32-inch TVs. So we had four 32-inch TVs kind of in a box formation. Two down below you controlled, and then the two up top kind of just had every camera so that you could just look up and be like, that's some suspicious activity. There's some weird activity over there. And I was sitting there, I was by myself. I looked up and I could see one of the employees shut the cage to the Fitbits. And I was like, okay, let me make sure that um, had someone walk up the Fitbit. So I rewound the camera. Noticed that the janitor was cool with everybody. He was just one of those friendly guys that just wanted to talk to everybody. Um, the janitor went up to the guy, and the employee was very new. I think he was within like 5 months of the job. He was more or less like a seasonal hire. Um, and janitor goes up to him, asks him for a Fitbit. Um, the kid goes in, opens it, grabs one of like the $200, the Fitbit Blaze, I believe it was. It was like one of the most expensive ones. Grabs it and just hands it to the janitor. Mind you, the janitor's on shift right now, so he's cleaning. And so he's got one of those three level tier carts, and so hands it to the janitor, which you're not supposed to do. You can get written up for that. Um, so now I'm like, ooh, let's get it. So I start watching the janitor, and the janitor goes to a fitting room, and so the Fitbit's on the first tier. There's two other tiers. So he goes in the fitting room, cleans, and then the Fitbit goes from first tier to the second tier. It automatically drops tiers. So that's automatically suspicious behavior because why is that Fitbit? First of all, you need to go and buy a Fitbit before you shouldn't even be shopping while on shift. Um, so already suspicious. And then once that Fitbit dropped tiers after he came out of that fitting room, I was already on my phone with my boss because again, I was very new at this job, so I had no clue what to do. My job was actually not to get employee stealing. My job was only to get the customers that are stealing because we had supervisors that investigated internal theft. Um, so I'm on the phone with my boss. He tells me to just continue to watch him. Then the janitor goes into the next fitting room. So he's already been into the young men's. Now he's going into the regular men's fitting room. And then the Fitbit moves down one more tier. So it's now on the bottom of the cart. Um, so talking to my boss at this point, I have to, while this is all happening, I have to run around the store and make sure nothing was ditched. I've got my boss on the phone, and then I have another phone with me because at the company I worked for, we had another company that could control our cameras remotely. So I had them, and they gave us a phone for that, like a cell phone, like one of those old flip phones. So I had them on the phone. So I'm like talking in and out of ears. So they're watching that person. So while I'm running behind this guy, like I'm doing some ninja stuff. Like once the guy goes to the fitting room, I'm like taking the long way around to try to get try to get to the fitting room without him noticing. And like if he sees me, I'm like dipping, diving, trying not to be noticed. And he goes into the women's fitting room, and when he comes out, the Fitbit completely disappears. The box is gone. See no signs of it. So I go into the fitting room behind him. Still got the people controlling my cameras. Um, Fitbit's not in there. And then we have cameras in our back rooms for our stock and all that. And goes in, and there is a camera right under the janitor workstation. Um, so I was watching that camera when he pulled that trash can in because it was a three tier car with a trash can in it. And he pulls the trash bag out, and you can barely see the bottom of the box because if you ever seen a Fitbit box, it is like teal blue or something like that. So I can barely make out the teal blue at the bottom of the bag. So it looked like he like went through the bag and just stuck the box at the bottom, so I can see it. Still on the phone with my boss at this time. He goes and throws the bag out. So talking to my boss, and we're uh, talking to him. I was like, "Do you want me to stop him or do you want me to let him go?" And he's like, "Well, he's either first stealing merchandise or second throwing out merchandise. So no matter what you do, stop him because he's causing a loss to the company at that point. Because that's a $200 loss to that company. Um, so it's like 9:50 at this moment. So he um, throws the bag away. So I'm getting ready. I'm like standing up. I'm like, oh, I'm pumped. I'm like, oh, let's get it. First employee theft. I'm so ready for this. And he so goes and grabs all of his stuff and goes clocks out. Gets on the phone because it was an outside company, so he has to clock out by phone to his company. And as soon as he hits those doors, I'm taking off. I running through the perfume department, through the registers, right out the doors, right to him. Luckily, he came back within me because he was cool with loss prevention, so came back in. I was like, "Hey man, loss prevention, I need to come back inside." Um, so at that point, I bring him back in the office and I started talking to him, and I have my boss on my phone, and I can't do at this point. I'm not registered to do any internal investigations or interviews, so I can't really talk to the people to make them confess that they just stole something. So I put my boss on speaker to talk to him, and then this guy has the balls to pretend that he doesn't speak English because he's Hispanic. So he starts speaking Spanish, and he just like my boss shuts him down. He's like, "I've heard you speak English. I know who you are. I know everything. You can speak English, so don't waste my time here." So the guy ended up confessing to stealing the Fitbit watch. I think that's all he confessed to stealing because we caught him red-handed with that. He didn't have an ID or anything, so we had to call the cops because if you can't identify the person, then you gotta call the cops on them and charge them with shoplifting. But after all, that was a very crazy and funny story.